Hey YouTube friends, today I'm going to pick a peck of peppers for pickling. I'm going to show you how I'm doing it and then give you just a little bit of a overview of my garden and my plans for fall. So let's dig in. So I've grown a few different types of peppers this year. I really wanted to, of course I'm growing normal things like tomatoes and beans and corns and potatoes, those staples of life. But I wanted to give some spice to my diet as well. And so I grew a few of my favorite kinds of peppers. First of all, I love pepperoccinis. I first discovered these. They used to stick them in the box of pizza when I would get a pizza from Papa John's, and that's the first time I ever had a pepperoccini. And then I found that you could buy pickled pepperoncinis in the grocery store, and that's just wonderful. They have a good bit of, they have some spice and some peppery taste, and they have a little bit of heat, but not too much. When I was younger, I used to like to eat hot, super hot food, but at some point I just kind of woke up and said, why am I killing myself trying to eat food that is so hot? I like a little bit of spice, but I want to enjoy my food. I don't want to survive my food. So I like peppers like these pepperoccinis that are a little bit hot, but not overwhelmingly hot. So I decided to grow them this year. And at first, these pepperoccinis, they kind of slow to get started. I was really disappointed. But then all of a sudden, they just really kicked it into high gear, and we're getting a ton of these pepperoccinis. I also grew something called a Santa Fe pepper. And so these are spicier, hotter than the pepperoccinis for sure. Probably this is the hottest pepper that I'm growing so far. And again, it was the same kind of situation with these Santa Fe's. Started out not really producing a lot, and then all of a sudden they just kicked it into high gear. And so I've been really getting a lot of these. They're a little bit too hot for my taste, but I'm glad that I tried them out. And they're producing well, and they have a good flavor. Also growing some hot banana peppers. And these are still, I'm starting to get some, but they really haven't kicked it into high gear yet. So the verdict is still out on those. And then of course I've got some bell peppers that have started to grow. Starting to produce some of these green bell peppers, so I'm glad to see that as well. But my absolute favorite pepper that I've grown this year is this jalapeno pepper. This variety is called a cinder jalapeno, and jalapenos to me are just the ideal hot pepper. They have a little bit of spice to them. They're kind of hot, but they're not too hot. They're not so hot that they're unbearable, but they are definitely a hot pepper. And they have a really good flavor. To me, the jalapeno is the perfect balance of taste and heat. It's hot, but not too hot. And yet it also has a ton of great flavor. These can be stuffed and made into stuffed peppers. You can use them to spice up a soup or add them to tacos, put them in some chili. There's all kinds of great uses for these. And there's also a lot of good ways that you can preserve them. You can eat them fresh. You can dry them and save them for later. And you can also pickle them. Post in the comments. Let me know, how do you preserve your hot peppers? But this is my favorite variety of jalapeno so far. These were the first peppers to start providing and producing, and they were just producing a ton of peppers. And I thought that surely they would quit because they were the first ones to start, but they just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, which is awesome. Now I just noticed that this jalapeno pepper plant, for some reason, you can see how wilted it is. I have no idea why that pepper plant has wilted like that. It just started this past week. The other two are just fine, but apparently something has happened to this. It still has peppers on it, but I don't know what's caused that to wilt like that. It's planted right here next to these other two pepper plants. They all are getting the same exact amount of water, sunlight, and everything. So I really don't know what has happened. Maybe these other plants are about to go through that same dying back phase as well. I don't know. These plants have been producing all summer long. Like I said, they were the first peppers to start producing, and they're still going strong, even after the other ones have just began to produce. If I was going to grow pepper every year, and if I had one pepper to choose, it would be this cinder jalapeno pepper. To me, it's just the most productive. It's the easiest to grow. The plants thrive, and it's the most versatile pepper to me. Now it's the first week of September, and my garden is the story of my garden right now. A lot of it is weeds. This was a cornfield, and we harvested the corn, and just weeds have just taken over. And to be honest, I didn't want to disturb the plot that much for a number of reasons. Because I've got some volunteer cantaloupe that are growing here. I've also got some spaghetti squash that's growing in here. And I have some volunteer red ripper peas that are also growing in here. So I knew I had a lot of different things like that growing in this plot, and I just really didn't want to disturb it. So I've kind of just let it do its thing. And I wanted to see what all would grow. I wouldn't be surprised even if I ended up with some watermelon or some sweet potatoes growing in this plot, because I had some of that stuff planted here last year. So it's always nice to me when you get produce that you didn't plant. It just voluntarily comes about. So really didn't stay on top of the weeds in some of my other garden plots as well. I wanted to just kind of see what happened. I thought I had a lot of beans coming up because the vines that were coming up looked a lot like beans. And actually, I believe, maybe you can help me if you know better, but I believe this is actually a wild morning glory that is growing here. And it's really just taken over this garden bed. There was tomatoes in here, and there's some basil. You can see the basil's growing there. Also have another one of those cinder jalapeno pepper plants growing in here that's still producing. But yeah, the weeds and the vines have just sort of taken over in this plot, and I'm going to have to get in here and clean it up. But I'm still getting cherry tomatoes. This sweetie cherry tomato has just really done well in this garden plot. But it's going to be time to clean it up soon. It's going to be time to harvest these sweet potatoes in probably a week or two. So be looking for a video to come out about that. But here we have this corn plot, and I have another corn plot in the front yard. They did really well. Got some sweet corn and some field corn. Check out my video about how to make your own grits and cornmeal. That was a very interesting process. I have plans for this plot. I really liked growing my own corn and making my own cornmeal. So I'm going to try to grow wheat in here. Never grown wheat before, but I want to grow some wheat and grind it up and make my own flour. So be watching out for that. It'll be time to plant my wheat soon. And so that'll be going into this plot, and I'll also be planting some wheat way up there in my front cornfield plot as well. Let's pick some of these peppers, and then I'm going to take them inside and show you a simple, easy way to pickle your peppers. Psalm 65. What mighty praise, O God, belongs to you in Zion. We will fulfill our vows to you, for you answer our prayers. All of us must come to you. Though we are overwhelmed by our sins, you forgive them all. What joy for those you choose to bring near, those who live in your holy courts. What festivities await us inside your holy temple. You faithfully answer our prayers with awesome deeds, O God, our Savior. You are the hope of everyone on earth, even those who sail on distant seas. You formed the mountains by your power and armed yourself with mighty strength. You quieted the raging oceans with their pounding waves and silenced the shouting of the nations. Those who live at the ends of the earth stand in awe of your wonder. From where the sun rises to where it sets, you inspire shouts of joy. You take care of the earth and water it, making it rich and fertile. The river of God has plenty of water. It provides a bountiful harvest of grain, for you have ordered it so. You drenched the plowed ground with rain, melting the clods and leveling the ridges. You softened the earth with showers and blessed its abundant crops. You crowned the year with a bountiful harvest. Even the hard pathways overflow with abundance. The grasslands of the wilderness become a lush pasture, and the hillsides blossom with joy. The meadows are clothed with flocks of sheep, and the valleys are carpeted with grain. They all shout and sing for joy. I want to show you something. Here, I told you I had a lot of volunteers that were coming up. Look at this right here. These are California black-eyed peas. This whole plot, this whole raised bed was planted with California black-eyed peas last year. And I was kind of bummed actually because I didn't plant any this year, but they just voluntarily started coming up. I guess some of the peas from last year fell into the bed and they just reseeded themselves. And then when the temperature was right, everything just started to come out. So mixed right in with my pepperoccinis here. I've got these black-eyed peas that are growing as well. And so I'm gonna have me a harvest of black-eyed peas that I didn't even really do anything for. And that's just always cool to me. Now what I like to do, I just like to fill my sink up with some water, and then I put my peppers right in the water to let them wash clean. Before I do that though, I'm gonna take my okra out of there, set it to the side. I'm just gonna fill that up with some water and just dump all my peppers right in there. And we'll just use that to wash off any dirt. Any dirt, dust, or residue, or anything like that. You can just do it all at one time. To make up our pickling brine, we're going to use 1 cup of white distilled vinegar and 1 cup of water and 1 tablespoon of sea salt. And this is some sea salt that I made from some ocean water that I got in Florida. You can watch a video about how you can make your own sea salt. It's a very simple, fun process. It's a great thing, great little project to do when you're on vacation at the ocean. So, we're going to add our 1 cup of water, 1 cup of distilled vinegar, 1 tablespoon of salt. And we're just going to heat that up to a boil. Meanwhile, I like to heat my jars up just with some hot tap water. I'm going to let them soak in some hot tap water, and that's just going to help bring the temperature of the glass up a little bit. because we're going to pour that hot brine into these jars once they're full of pickles. So I don't want to pour hot liquid into a cold jar. That could cause a crack or even for the glass to shatter. It doesn't have to be exact same temperature, but I like my glass to be hot when I put hot liquid in it. Now this is some California soft neck garlic that I grew in my garden this year. And I love growing garlic because it's something that will last all season long if you dry it and cure it properly. And we're just going to add a couple of cloves to each jar. Once we get that brine boiling, we're going to let it boil for about a minute, and then we're just going to turn it down. Let it cool off a little bit while we put the pickles in the jars. So we're just going to pour that water out of there. We don't need it. It's just to help with the temperature. I'm going to put a couple of cloves of garlic. I'll put one in the bottom, and I don't even worry about taking the paper off of it. It's not an issue. If it's dirty or something like that, you want to peel off the outer layer, that's fine. I'm going to put one in at the beginning and then one in at the end or in the middle. And that'll just kind of help spread the flavor of the garlic around in the brine. But you know, these things are going to they're going to soak for a long time. I don't even want to try to eat them until it's been at least a week. But a lot of times it might be 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. You're going to be eating on these peppers. You know, they'll last in the refrigerator for at least a couple of months. And if you wanted to water bath can them, you could, and that'd make them last even longer. But you don't have to. Just a plain refrigerator. We're going to pack these, put the brine on top of it, and we're going to put them in the refrigerator. And just like that, the vinegar brine solution will help them keep for at least 2 months. So now, some people might want to chop up the peppers, and you can certainly do that. Some people like to take the stems off of them. I don't even worry about that. I just put them straight in there. One thing you do want to do, you want to pack those peppers in there as tight as you can. Get as many in there as you can, because they're going to absorb the brine, and then that's going to make it where you're going to think it's full of brine, but then the pepper's going to absorb some of it, and it's going to start to look empty. So put as many peppers in there as you can. I mean, really pack it down. So I kind of try to start out like this and just take up as much space as I can. And then I'm going to just even squish them in there. And I'm going to press them down with my fingers. So I'm going to make 1 jar of pickled pepperoccinis, and I'm going to make 1 jar of pickled. Now I do want to take the leaves off if there's ever any leaves or anything like that. Don't want that in there. But I'm going to make 1 jar of pickled pepperoccinis and 1 jar of pickled jalapenos. So we're going to just squish that down in there. It's almost crushing those peppers down in there. Just get as many in as we can. Stuff them into every little space that you can find. Don't leave any air space in there if you can help it. Just really pack them in there. And these pepperoccinis are great. You can eat them just plain by themselves. They're great on salads. You can, if you make a pizza, if you like to cook your own pizzas, or even if you buy those, frozen pizzas. When you stick it in the oven, just put a couple of these pepperoccinis on top of it, and it's a great little addition to spice up any meal that you got. They're good as a side dish to a nice deli sandwich, whatever. But just pack those peppers in there. Take your thumbs and just really squish them down. And get a couple more in there. If a few of the peppers bust open, that's That's quite all right. That's fine. Doesn't matter at all. I think I can get one more in there. Yeah. Take that leaf off. Stick that right down in there. Now, I forgot to put my clove in there halfway through, so I'm just going to stick it right there and it'll be fine. Now let's do the same thing with the jalapenos. Get those in there. Now let's take these jars and we're just going to put them in here in this hot water for a minute. Be careful, we don't want them to tip over. We don't get any water inside it. We're just going to let those heat up for a minute. Now I've got my pickling brine in this little measuring cup. I just put it from the pan into the measuring cup because it makes it easier to pour. And we're just going to pour that right over those peppers. Oh, don't want to tip over my jar there. They're getting a little frisky on me. And we want to really fill this up. We want to leave about 1/4 of an inch headspace at the top is all. Because those peppers, there's air inside them, and they tend to absorb that brine. And then next thing you know, your jar isn't full. So what I like to do is just fill them up, set them to the side for a minute, let them soak for a minute. And then if I need to add more brine, I'll come back and add more brine. Fill it all the way up to 1/4 of an inch from the top. And just squish those peppers down in there a little bit. Try to float to the top. Again, we're just going to set that to the side. Let them soak for a minute. All right, those pickles have soaked up a little bit of that brine, so I'm just going to add a little bit more in there, just kind of top it off. So you can sort of see how I've got it filled almost to the top. We'll just come back, put us a top on there. And here's why you call them refrigerator pickles, because you just put them in the refrigerator. And I'm gonna pull that one out right there. Now this one's been in the refrigerator for over a week, so it's ready to taste. Let's see how it tastes. What I like to do is I just like to bite the tip of it off and just kind of suck the juice out. That pepper juice and that brine, so good. You got a salad, just squeeze it on the salad, or squeeze it on your sub sandwich, or squeeze it on your pizza before you eat it. Just a wonderful taste. Get that brine on there and then just take the pepper. Go to town. Delicious. Pickled pepperoncini peppers, or pickled jalapeno peppers. And these things will last for a couple of months. The jalapenos are great. You can add them straight out of the pickled brine, put them in a salsa with some of your fresh tomatoes, make a wonderful salsa. There's all kinds of things that you can do with it. What do you like to do with your peppers? Post in the comments and let me know. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Hope you'll subscribe to my channel so that you can keep up with all that's going on in the garden as we learn together, we have fun, and we grow and be fruitful.